Hello and welcome to another edition of Proselytize or Apostatize. I'm your host, Dave Russell, and I'm waiting for my co-host, David Paulman. But I am starting an open mic night tonight with all of our guests, whoever wants to come on and talk about anything they want. It's kind of like the kickoff to this whole thing on open or on the apologetic month. You know, we have great debates, discussions, interviews coming up. We got Jay Warner Wallace on the 1st, Gary Habermas on the 6th, Fuzz Ronald on the 19th, and we've got a whole bunch of guest host debates as well. So as we get started today, if there's anybody that wants to come in now, they're more than welcome. Ask us any question you want. We could talk about whether the sky is blue or anything that you want. And that's what we're trying to figure out here. David Paulman is just telling me he's here on Facebook. I don't know if he's actually able to get in yet or not, but if anybody wants to come in, I'll send an invite. I am actually putting one out there now. And I'm used to having David Paulman on the line with me, but he's not here yet. So yeah, it's just like a presuppositionalist to be late on things, and heretics, so. But yeah, if anybody wants to come on, again, we are here. I wanted to talk about epistemology first with David, but since he's not here, I'm going to start with apologetics because I think it's important that we talk a little bit about apologetics. That's what we do here on Proselytize or Apostatize. We talk about everything under the sun when it comes to apologetics. The goal of this show is to facilitate the discussion, the hard discussions, the long discussions, and to really be here for the people that maybe even on the fence and give them good information. And as I say, to engage some and to David says, I'm making you do all the thinking. Here he is. If anybody wants to see what David Paulman's writing, there we go, right there. He is here, but he's not. But as I was saying, we exist to engage and to equip. It's kind of like my motto, to engage some and to equip some. The engagement is with anybody that's like an atheist or of another religion, of a different worldview. And we even gone and straight out and did politics a couple times on some social issues when my former co-host was here, Titus. But yeah, that's really why we exist. And we wanted to open this up tonight for any of our guests or fans that want to come on. And all they got to do is click the StreamYard, and I'll be putting this out here as we go. So David Paulman saying he's with us in spirit here, and there's the link if you guys want to go and click on that to come in and chat. It's fine with me. David says he's with us in spirit. So David, you said apologetics is epistemology, buddy. What did you mean by that? Can you tell everybody why apologetics is epistemology? And by the way, hurry up and get on. Yeah, we're just waiting for Paulman to decide to show up, so. He says he's going as fast as he can too. So, but yeah, the idea that, churches need apologetics is pretty tantamount right now. I think that we have to have apologetics in the churches these days because of the type of culture we live in. So without that, without it, I don't think we're going to be able to get where we need to be. And I know I'm supposed to be doing I'm not supposed to be doing all the thinking here, but I think it's important because these type of conversations help us. They help us, they help us reach out to people. They help us actually engage on an intellectual level. R.C. Sproul said he was disturbed by the credibility of the intellectual intellectual Christianity. He was troubled by where that was, and it's true. I mean, we have issues when it comes to apologetics, even in the church, because you know there's so many people that have come out and said, "Hey, you know, I don't I don't know why I believe what I believe, and the answers I'm getting from my pastors aren't sufficient." So again, another reason why this broadcast exists is to be able to give those hard answers and to help those hard answers. But as I keep trying, I'm going to keep trying to get David Paulman in here. You guys can come on or ask questions. It is all good with me. I'm here for you guys tonight. Again, if you want to come in, just hit the StreamYard link. Have a good Chrome connection or updated Chrome and a good connection, and you should be on as soon as you hit my quit here. Paulman says apologetics is epistemology. But again, I asked him, what does he mean by that? Oh, he says his computer is being slow right now. David Paulman wants to know how old the Earth is. Well, David, I would say about 4.5 to 4.6 billion years, give or take. At least that's what modern science tells us. I think the question you're trying to get at is trying to go to these young Earth creationists and see what they got to say. But yeah, I would say I'm an old Earther, so old Earth creation is kind of where I'm at. I take on the RTB model pretty seriously. I think that's the best description of the Earth and how old the Earth is, and I think their model for creation is pretty legit. So I would say that definitely. David Paulman, you said you got a new computer. I don't understand how it's so slow if you just got a new computer. And the reason I had to start the broadcast, David, is because I couldn't wait because Facebook Live doesn't like you to go too long on that. But yeah, to answer your question, the Earth is 4.6 billion years. Or yeah, 4.6 billion. Yeah, I think that's right. Let's see here. Did I polish that mic? No, that's the way it came, man. I don't even touch it when I'm not even doing anything. I push it off to the side and able to do my schoolwork here as well. So I know you're Titus. You've got the account, so obviously. Oh, look who it is. Look who decided to show. There he is. Hey, buddy.
The computer wasn't working, so I switched over to phone for however long it lasts.
Yeah, David, you had me stuttering and stammering here the first 10 minutes of the show. Thanks a lot, man.
This show would be nothing without me. I mean, this proved it to me, man. I mean, you can't handle these kinds of hard questions on your own.
Oh, I definitely can. I'm just well, I don't know. I can hear myself through your computer, so it's really distracting as well. So you're gonna have to mute something there. Better? Nope. I can still hear myself.
I tried it with earbuds, without earbuds, and it didn't help anything.
Titus says, how can he lose control of this account? Well, you can't, Titus. You're stuck to it for life. All right, we got a question from Sahai Luke. I hope I said that right, buddy. Do you agree with scholars that the Prophet Muhammad is a great example in all his ways, sayings, and doings? Well, Mr. Luke, if you listen to the broadcast, we do not agree with all those scholars because I don't think all the scholars say that. So
yeah. I'd like to know what source you got
Yeah,
this idea from that all scholars say that, because I'm aware of at least one. Well, we'll see if David Wood counts as a scholar. He's got a
yeah.
PhD, so that makes him a scholar of some sort, and he certainly would not agree with that statement.
Yeah, David, there is still an echo, I heard. I think it's on your
I
end.
don't. I mean, I can
Is
mute
your
when I'm not
computer muted?
talking. I'm not on my computer. My computer's not working, so I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So how do you let me see if I can minimize it. You still hear me? All right, now you can talk. Go ahead. Is the echo gone, Titus? Luke says it was a joke, and I was pulling your leg before Brother David Davis Paulman hopped on. I'm a Christian. Awesome, dude. But yeah, it would be good to see those scholars if you had them. But again, yes, we get you. We get you. Just joking. Yeah. Do we still have an echo, Titus? All right. Here's another question. Paulman, are you a pacifist yet?
Nope, not yet.
All right. So yeah, Titus, I did speak a little bit about you as this broadcast started. So yeah, none of us are pacifists at all except for you. So, but yeah, we'll have to debate on that sometime coming up. See why you're still a pacifist after all the after we've disproved you several times. He said shame. Again, if anybody wants to come on, just feel free. You can actually use this link to get on, and you can actually come on with video as well. You don't have to uh, type like Titus is doing. He can actually come on if he wants and talk about pacifism if he's okay with doing that. That's fine.
No, you got to say if he's man enough. You got to like taunt
Oh
him with it
yeah,
to make him
yeah. I
come
got to taunt
on.
him a little bit. Yeah. But if anybody wants to come on, I got a 10-person quay. So if anybody wants to come on and wait a turn to actually come on and talk, we'll get you on here and we'll actually put as many people as we can on here and have a big discussion. So it can go any way. David, you were talking about epistemology. Apologetics is epistemology. Why don't you explain that?
Well, sure. So this kind of comes out of a bit of an article that I'm working on called "A Dilemma for Presuppositionalism." And so what I identify in this article is that apologetics is tightly connected to epistemology because both are concerned with the justification of belief, right? So we could really say that your apologetic methodology is going to be kind of an extension of the epistemology that you hold. And so whatever form of epistemology that you hold to, that's going to have a big effect on how you try to justify your Christian faith. And so, that can play out in a lot of different ways, right? If you hold an evidentialist epistemology, then you'll very likely have a classical or evidential apologetic methodology. If you're some sort of coherentist, then you might well hold to some sort of presuppositional apologetics. So, so just that's the connection between the two. It's about justification.
Yeah, that's what I've learned. It's a lot about justification. So we got our first contestant here on The Mic is Right. Titus, I'm going to add him to the stream. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how are you Davids doing?
We're doing good. I thought I would try this open mic night thing to, have a little fun with it. So what's up? What's going on?
Not much. I was just scrolling Facebook and saw it pop up. I saw you were going to do it earlier, but I didn't remember that it was tonight. So I'm glad I happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, buddy, we've got a full month, so I decided that hey, let's kick it off with open mic night, and see how that turns out,
Yeah, I saw you're rolling with the big dogs this month.
Oh yeah, we've got three big guests: Jay Warner Wallace, Gary Habermas, and Fuzz Rana from Reasons to Believe.
Nice. So you're
We've
still
also
doing
I've also got I actually had to put a calendar next to my desk here to write out this month's stuff because we've got so much. We've got uh, uh, David and myself versus Jared and Jordan coming on.
nice.
It's more of like a discussion, I think. So
They are your nemesis, aren't they? Like since Proselytize started, Jordan has been kind of like the arch enemy atheist, and now they started their own show. I see that you guys interact a lot, so that's pretty cool.
yeah, I want to look at him as a nemesis and more more like he's part of the family. I mean he's part of
There
the
you go.
PRA family. And so Jared is too, and these guys are just great to talk to. They have meaningful discussions, and they're always polite, and they're always respectful. So it's good to have those type of discussions because I think it really adds to the content of the show. And what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, we can come and we can reason together, and we
Yeah.
can talk about these things together. But yeah, so you wanted to jump on to talk about pacifism.
Yes, let's do it. I'm always down for that.
All right, man. Give an opening statement. You got 5 minutes. Go. No, I'm just joking. So yeah, if nobody knows, Titus is a pacifist, and we've had I would refer you to the show. We actually had Titus on before he debated Doug Wilson, and just to kind of like give him some pushback and go so he could prepare a little bit, but not like he needed it. He's pretty good on his own. So, anyways, Titus, tell us why your Mennonite background leads you to be a pacifist.
It's the Bible, not my Mennonite background.
Oh, you sure about that?
Well, of course, our
Yeah.
background always influences us, but there's a number of things about my extremely conservative Mennonite background that I'm sure would put you guys' evangelical fundamentalism to shame that I have thrown by the wayside. But pacifism is definitely one of the things that I've kept. But it really starts with love your enemies. That's my ultimate proof text. And I think it really comes down to your view of love. So if love is simply an inward disposition that doesn't affect your actions, I can see how you could love your enemy and kill them simultaneously. But if it is more than an inward disposition, but actually affects how we treat our enemy, then I think that would preclude killing them for two reasons. Number one, it cuts off their opportunity to repent if they are not a believer. If they are a believer, they're probably not doing something worthy of death. And if they are a believer, also it really is not showing the love that is supposed to exist between the family of God for one person to kill another. But also, no, it doesn't just cut off their opportunity to repent, but it also ends their physical life on earth. Obviously. So yeah, just the list of things that people actually want in life. Death is generally pretty near the bottom, and if love is seeking the well-being of that person, I'm not sure how killing them contributes to their well-being.
Yeah, I think you're right. It does have to do a lot with your view on love. I'd have to disagree with that conclusion of well-being. I think that's just part of it. There's a lot to love that I think that we'd have to explore before we can say, hey, because it could be the love that I have for somebody that drives me to be violent towards somebody else to protect them. So that's always a factor. I hear David's in the background, so I'm going to let him respond here because I see him itching.
Oh, I was going to say, come on, Titus, haven't you read Romans 13? I mean, we got to obey those that have the rule over us. We got to, the rulers that be ordained of God. If you're resisting the power, then you're resisting God. So if the powers tell you got to fight in a war and kill people, I mean, you got to do it, man. Romans 13, it's right there, man.
I feel like you're being sarcastic, or I hope so. But I do want to respond to what Russell said. So I agree. You can kill your enemy out of love for your neighbor, but you cannot kill your enemy out of love for your enemy. So we're not just called to love our neighbor. we're also called to love our enemy.
Yep. So we're in a paradox, right? Like, how do we solve that?
Well, I think there's ways that you can love your neighbor when they're being violently attacked, for example, that do not include killing their attacker. I just think it requires a little bit of creativity. Often these things are set up as a false binary where either you kill the attacker or you do nothing. And I just think there's more options than that. Like Anabaptists have this concept of the third way, that there's always going to be a way that does not fit into the binary that's presented, that's actually the way of Jesus, and that's the creative way, and that's what I would encourage people to pursue.
Yeah. So I mean, okay. For example, David, your stuff's not muted. I can hear myself again. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with your sound there, buddy. But yeah, so Titus, like in my position, if I come after somebody, I'm not to come at them with killing them in mind. It's to stop the threat. And I think that you would also agree that, okay, yeah, we got to stop the threat. You want to see more creative ways to do it, but you do agree that if somebody's attacking your neighbor, and you intervene and it's violent, you just do your best to, hey, I'm not going to try to kill you, but I am going to try to stop you.
Yeah. So there are different responses that are appropriate in different situations. So if someone came up and slapped me on the left cheek, obviously the appropriate response is to turn the other cheek. But if someone's beating up your neighbor, there's going to be a different response to that.
Right.
If the response might be to restrain the attacker, the response might be to put yourself in between the attacker and the victim, which is a very Christian response. If we look at what Jesus did, depending on your model of atonement, or the right response might be to call the police. So there are a number of appropriate responses. My only contention is that ending the life of the attacker is never the appropriate response. And generally, the posture that conservative Christians have toward the attacker is also inappropriate. This like we want to teach them a lesson, rather than trying to figure out the way that is the most redeeming, not just for the victim, but also for the attacker.
All right, Paul, you got anything?
Well, I was going to ask if we have anyone else waiting, but if we don't,
no, we don't have
I'll...
anybody yet. No.
Okay, good.
Try to take you all night.
No, it's fine. We chat. It's okay. The old hosts or the hosts combined here.
So yeah, I was listening to a sermon by Greg Boyd, as I'm wont to do, and he was kind of making these sorts of arguments that you're making, because he's a pacifist, and he gave something that I found helpful but also kind of vague, and it seems to me like Christian pacifists really give these vague answers that aren't helpful in specific situations. So maybe you can help me with this. But what he said was that if he says if you really love your enemies, right, then think of them like if it was your son, right? If you had your own son and he was the person who broke into your house and wanted to hurt your family, well, then how would you handle that situation? And so he said you would think of some way to deal with that other than killing him. So he says if you want to think of how to love your enemies, then if someone, who you might otherwise be tempted to hurt, think of if that was someone I loved, then how would I deal with that? But that wasn't like a specific answer. That was just, a helpful way of thinking about it, but without, really dealing with the situation. So how would you kind of say we could get more specific with this?
So you're setting up a hypothetical situation where a thief comes into my house with a gun to steal what I have?
Yeah, or anything like that. Is it just? It always seems like we're looking for a third way, or I would think of it this way, but just never. I never really hear like specifics on how it would actually play out. It's just like kind of thrown to this hypothetical third way, and we never really hear what it is.
Sure. So, I would need you to be pretty specific with this hypothetical situation, but maybe I can set it up for you. So, suppose someone came in with a gun, and he's pointing it at me and my family and telling me to give all my money. I'm going to give him all my money and ask him to leave, right? I'm not going to try to shoot him or take him down, because that would put me and my family even more at risk. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe you have a different situation in mind.
I mean, it could be that when, they've got a specific demand like that could be easier. But, maybe there'd be a more difficult one. And I'm trying to think of a specific one that I've heard of.
Well, I mean, we can go to, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Night Stalker.
No.
Okay, he was in the 80s. He was a serial killer, and he would go to random houses, saying he was working for Satan, and he would do all sorts of things to people and kill them. It doesn't matter if you're young, you're old, but his intent, he was a sociopath. His intent was to take the life of people. Now, in a situation where he has a knife and you have a gun, and you have the ability to stop him, to stop his reign of terror, I mean, do you take that opportunity to stop the threat, not necessarily in the hopes to kill him? Now, blood loss is what actually kills people, right? So that's what stops people verbatim, right? But yes, we take actions to aid that along. So I don't understand where, as a pacifist, where that line is drawn for you. Like, you're not actually killing the person, your actions are. And if you're dealing with somebody like Ramirez, who was the Night Stalker, and you're at that point, you have no choice but to shoot. And you're hitting center mass. You're not going for the head. You're not going to John Wick him. 2 shots to the chest, 1 to the head. But you're gonna stop the threat. And let's say once you do stop the threat, Ramirez is laid out. Now, my next response is to give him first aid, to try to keep him alive, so he can face justice the right way. Now, would that be an appropriate response if it came to that?
So let me try to set up your situation a little more. I know who the guy is. I recognize him as this creep. And my wife is across the room, and he is headed for her. I just so happened to be in the part of my house where my hunting rifle was in a closet, and this is becoming less and less likely, but I'm just doing this to show you how these situations are often pretty unrealistic. But I just so happen to be very near my hunting rifle, and somehow I'm able to grab my hunting rifle, flip it up to my shoulder, take it off safety, it's loaded, and shoot at him before he gets to my wife. So for one, I have a pretty big house, so I'm already disobeying Jesus' teachings on wealth. I'd have to have a mansion for him to have to run that far to get here with his knife. But if I'm that fast, because I don't encourage Christians to like carry a weapon on their person, for example. But if I'm that fast with my hunting rifle, I would assume I'm pretty good. So I would shoot at his legs rather than at his torso in hopes of toppling him, right? That I don't really have a problem with doing something like that. That situation is so extremely rare that, like, if I could get, even if you would say you would kill the person in that situation or shoot him in the torso, if I could get Christians to that point, I would feel like I've succeeded. In what I mean by that is to say that only in that situation is it appropriate. Like
Titus, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Or okay, because you do make it sound like it's an impossible scenario, or it's less likely. Yes, they are. These type of situations are the unlikely situations. They are the unlikely ones. So yeah, they are rare, and it's a shame that people get away with hurting people more than good people are able to stop them. I agree with that. But let's say, I just wanted to, and you already pretty much answered it, but it's not uncommon. Let's say you were coming home from hunting, getting food for your wife, and you got your conies in your hand, and you walk through the door, and that's where you find it. Those situations do happen. And like you said, I think, it's better to try at least to stop him, and, you're not trying to kill him. You're trying to just stop the threat, stop trying to kill my wife, so I think that's where we agree. So yeah, I think that should be the object of most Christians' mindsets when it comes to that is like,
Yeah.
you're not trying to kill the person. You're just
Let
trying
me
to
leave
stop
you.
a threat.
Let me
Anyway.
leave you with one last thing. I need to go. Dinner's ready.
Okay.
So a real life situation, two real life situations would be the Nickel Mines school shooting where the Amish school was shot up, and then the situation more recently, I think it was in Texas, where there was a shooter in a church, and a church member pulled a handgun out and took him down like very quickly.
Yeah.
So which of those situations, I'm just setting this up. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nickel Mines, but basically a lot of Amish kids were killed and it was all over the news. And eventually, like, the Amish community publicly reached out and said that they forgave the shooter, offered to try to get him out of his sentence. I don't know what all they did, but they publicly extended forgiveness. And it made basically world news that these Christians were loving their enemy and forgiving the attacker like this. I would just say, like, which of those situations looks more like Jesus? Which of them looks more like a sheep going to the slaughter, which is biblically how Jesus is referred to, and we're also supposed to be as harmless as doves. Like, is it the person who happens to be a really good shot and can whip out a gun and take down the attacker just in time? Or is it the community that, yes, suffers, follows the bloodstained footprints of the master in suffering horrible loss, but then extends love to their attackers? And my only the only thing I'm trying to contest is that one of those looks more like the Christianity of Jesus and the apostles who counted it all joy to suffer, and one of it looks more like an evangelical American Christianity that I would say in many ways has deviated from historic Christianity before Constantine. So there's my closing statement.
Okay, no, that's fine. We'll answer it. David, go ahead. I'll let you go first, bud.
Oh, well, he's just leaving because he's, too much heat. I'm kidding.
Also
I
'cause
respect
it's
your position, Titus.
Thanks, guys. This was
What's
fun.
that?
I'm gonna go eat steak.
Yeah. Take care, bud.
All right.
Have fun.
So
See,
yeah,
once
I
you're gonna
guess
go vegan,
I guess I would answer that with the idea of, I think they're both actually showing the love for other people by stopping a threat like that. There's honor in that. I don't think I would appeal to Titus's idea of the lamb to the slaughter in every situation, and I don't think that's what Christ was trying to promote. He said also to be wise as serpents too. So there's wisdom there. There's wisdom in defending yourself, I think, to be able to continue your work and so forth. There's also, there's several different factors that could play into that. I do think offering forgiveness should be the next step. Absolutely. I mean, they did suffer loss and they should offer forgiveness. David, what do you think? They did suffer loss. You got anything, David?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm still conflicted on the position. I was gonna say, I wonder why he hasn't gone vegan though. He's gonna eat that steak. Or he's okay with violence to animals.
That's funny. But yeah, so let's get back to epistemology. I was talking to David Johnson today on epistemology, but I'm not going to give any details because that's kind of I don't want to do that. So that's the other show. But epistemology was neat, just listening to a lot when it comes to epistemology and the history of it, and looking at the three different ways to respond to skepticism, which I think we focus on a lot, but we don't really look too much into people like Harry Putnam and their semantic idea of meaning and so forth. So, I mean, people like him say skepticism is very self-destructive. David, are you familiar with any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I don't take Putnam's route because he kind of has some externalist leanings and things, which I'm not a fan of. But
why don't you explain the
there's
idea
sure.
there?
So I'm not sure which three you're thinking of, but the kind of the broad responses are you've got the foundationalist response, which kind of says we've got immediately justified beliefs. usually identified kind of as our perceptions and simple analytic truths, things like logical laws and stuff. These things are justified just in virtue of their meanings. And then, of course, like a perception, just something that I see or am aware of. Sometimes the skeptic will say, "Oh, well, you're begging the question. You're assuming that what you see is really there." And of course, no, we're not. We know that we see something, but we're not assuming it's really there, so we're not begging the question. Then another response is kind of the externalist one, which is just that, oh, I don't have to give a response to skepticism, right? As long as my cognitive faculties are functioning properly, then I'm good. I don't need to give any further response beyond that. And
See,
I'm not sure what the third. Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. You're finishing the third what?
I wasn't sure what the third one you were thinking of was, so I was actually going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I was looking at they have the Cartesian, the Russellonian, and the more. These how you respond, the three ways to respond to skepticism. I think Putnam said something really cool. I got something here for it. He said, "It's all about meaning. To undermine knowledge, the skeptic needs to use meaningful language to describe a scenario that might be reality." I thought that was pretty cool. I think that, see, here's when it comes to epistemology for me, I take a little bit from each of those views. I don't know if have you ever heard of the eschatological epistemology that Lewis promoted? C.S. Lewis? You're muted, buddy. You're muted.
My bad.
It's all good,
No,
bud.
I'm familiar with C.I. Lewis, but not C.S. Lewis's epistemology.
So I was listening to this great discussion about C.S. Lewis's epistemology and how it's reflective in his many writings. It's not just I guess laid out. It's actually dispersed, and you can glean the epistemology not only from his apologetics and philosophy works, but his what is it? Fictional works, right? So the thing that they talked about is called eschatological epistemology. Sorry, those words are hard to say together. But basically what he does is he gives like an outline of what that is, and he puts it as like the summons of love, but the there's an end goal for knowledge. Like there's a like a, I don't want to say a teleos, but there is this idea that it's built in there. It's built in into that calling. It starts with like some sort of calling that you have. And I thought it was really interesting the way they're talking about it. So if anybody wants to look up things on epistemology, I would suggest looking into that and getting a better grasp on it. Like I said, I just dived into it just a little bit, but I thought it was very interesting. That was one of the things I thought was really interesting. Let me see if I can find you something real quick on it. But go ahead, David. You could talk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Moore's refutation of skepticism. Moore basically would just hold up his hands and say, "Oh, here, I got two hands, so I know that skepticism's wrong."
And you're ridiculous for doubting.
Yeah, I would, of course, that my response to Moore is just, that it's begging the question, because that's what the skeptic wants you to justify. But yeah, he gave like the very commonsensical one. And yeah, Peter Klein gives a similar response to the one you were referring to before, that skeptical like scenarios, skeptical questions and stuff, they presuppose a certain degree of knowledge. It might be possible for the skeptic to escape that, just, saying he's granting those assumptions for the sake of argument and still showing that you can't have knowledge. So sometimes I think skepticism is harder to refute than that, but there's certainly something to be gained in some of these responses. Minimally, they're interesting.
I think the Russellonian one's pretty good too, where, and I've used it several times, is when, you get to the point, it's like, I just don't have any good reason to deny that I have two hands in front of me, and I think that, for me, that's the route I've taken so many times. But if you examine these things, they have their own problems too. So it's like, can we come to a complete theory here, or is it one of these things we're going to be discussing forever? It kind of reminds me of the age-old painting of Plato and Aristotle walking together, and Plato's pointing up and Aristotle's pointing inward with his little book there. So yeah, it comes to that. I mean, are we ever going to figure that out? One day maybe.
Yeah, a lot of the hardest questions of philosophy are kind of the ones that endure, right? Like the problem of the criterion or the Agrippin trilemma, right? Like these problems go back to ancient philosophy, and there's still not, any agreed upon answer to a lot of them. So people make like big deals out of modern problems, like the Gettier problem that just like came up since the 1960s. I don't think it's going to last. I think Bertrand Russell solved that problem before it ever came up. And like, it's people are like all hyped up about it right now, but I don't think that's a problem that's going to endure. But like in 100, 200 years, yeah, people are still going to be discussing the Agrippin trilemma. So you kind of look at these issues that have always been with us and that there's never been a agreed upon solution. Those are like the big problems of philosophy.
Yeah, and the Gettier issue, people do make a big deal about it. It's kind of put it on instead of like maybe the back burner, it put it on the front burner, and this is what's discussed, the Gettier issue there. So, and that's justified true belief, right? So the issues that are concerned, but even if so, I see there's problem with every model that you put out there. I mean, there's several. And that's why I say, like, for me, it's easier just to pick a little bit from here and there and just say, okay, this is kind of like, I lean here. Okay, this does make sense, but they're all like incomplete. So, but anyways. So what's the next topic?
I don't know. We have anyone else who wants to come on with us?
Not yet.
Man,
we're
just boring. We're boring people to death.
I was hoping to see some of our friends come on. But yeah, you were talking about the age of the earth.
Well, I brought that up, yeah, because you looked like you were struggling before I was on here, so I was like, I'll give them a topic.
Yeah, I was, because I was like, what are we gonna actually talk about? I had a topic I was going to talk to you about, but I kind of needed you to talk about it, So I was like, okay, I can introduce the show. Maybe he'll get on, like, when I introduce it, he'll be able to link in. So yeah, age of the earth. So let's jump over.
Okay, can you tell us why you're a heretic and you take man's word over God's word and you believe that the earth is old?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I think that's what the text reads. So is that man's word? Is, the Bible's man's word, or is the Bible written by men, should I say? How are we supposed to interpret that word? So that's what it comes down to. How do we interpret the word of God? So yeah, I think definitely that the way you read it, you have to read Genesis as you got to read it literarily. You have to read it in its proper context. And I do think that context is more outlining an old earth view.
Nah, I don't interpret it. I just read it.
No, get out of here.
I always hated that response. Because
we got
those are the people. We got who?
Dale's on. What's up, Dale?
Hey, David. How's it going? I'm hearing like an echo.
Dale's on. I'm hearing an echo through you, Dale. Do you have earphones?
I just hear David Russell saying like, "Oh, it's Dale," like a million times.
Yes, because you gotta mute your mic when you're not talking real quick.
Mute my mic.
There you go. And Dale, put some earphones in, because that's what's causing it. And try to see what port you're using for your audio there.
Okay.
There you go.
I got the headphones in. I'm still hearing like myself echo.
Yeah, I don't know why you're hearing yourself echo. Let me mute mine and we'll let you ask. Give it a try now.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
good now.
I think so. Hopefully, no. All right. So
Perfect.
yeah.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me to come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's invited, man. We've tried to get we got Titus on here earlier. We're talking about passivism, and a third way and stuff like that. And then me and David were just talking about epistemology a little bit. So yeah, is there anything you want to discuss?
Okay, so again, I'm having the same problem. Like I hear you finish, and then like it's repeating like a sentence from.
Oh wow, I don't know now because I can hear you fine.
I'm hearing myself talking now.
Oh man. All right, well, how about you try again, Dale? Like hang up and then try again.
All right, so leave studio. Okay.
Yeah, leave studio to try again. So, David, where were we? Well, you got to unmute your mic before.
We were talking about people who don't know what they don't know, right? The people who say they don't interpret the Bible, they just read it, right? And when I'm dealing with someone who says that, then I know I'm dealing with somebody who it's kind of hard to deal with people like that because they're unaware of their own ignorance on certain things, right? And when it's a methodological problem like that, where like you don't think that you have to engage in any interpretation when reading scripture, and you just it's just like God imparting thoughts into your head, then yes, I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, I hear you there. I'm trying to see if this may be an issue on my end. Why don't you try it again, David? Start talking here. Let me see if there's something. Dale's back. But yeah. So Dale, you back in yet?
I am back in, but once again, it's the exact same thing. Like I'm listening to conversation, the same thing over and over again. That you guys.
Wow. I don't know. Me and David Johnson were having issues earlier today too. I don't know if it's just something on my end or on the the stream or what. Titus came in though pretty good.
Dale, you could try just putting your question in the comments if you can't. If this way is not working.
No worry. Okay. So that's what this is. I'm just supposed to ask you guys.
Yeah, anything you want.
Oh.
Or you could talk about anything you want.
It's weird. Yeah. Anything I want. Okay. So that's the last. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Open mic, brother. Open mic.
Okay. So I guess my thing was one thing I came up with was sort of like you guys are having guests. You guys are having guests on in the month of February with Gary Habermas. What is he speaking on? Like the historical Jesus versus Jesus?
Absolutely. Have you, sir? Are you watching the screen here too, Dale?
I am. Yeah.
That's probably why you're having this. He says, ask him if he has a YouTube window open with the stream.
Like a YouTube window with what?
Open with the stream.
Open with the stream.
You may be hearing from the browser.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea what that means. Like, remember, I'm not a. Yeah. So, what do I click to stop hearing from the browser?
Click. Take out the YouTube window that you have open with the stream. Keep the stream going, but keep the YouTube thing up that you're watching. Turn it off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How can you hear us now?
Yeah. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, you guys are actually normal. It's not like a million voices at once.
All right, we got got another guest too here. So, yeah, Dale, go ahead and ask your question, and then I'm going to bring on our next guest too, so he can respond to us as well.
Okay, so yeah, if you guys are talking about to Gary Habermas and the topic is the historical Jesus, I guess what do you guys think is the best evidence that the historical Jesus is true? And what do you think is the hardest evidence on the mythicist side to deal with, proving that Jesus didn't exist, allegedly?
Awesome. That's a good question. David, I'm going to let you hit it first. I just want to welcome Darth Dawkins. How you doing, bud?
Yeah, that's funny. I thought maybe he was having a problem with the browser, but now that I've entered the stream, now I'm hearing myself.
You're hearing it through David Paulman's mic. All right, now does it sound normal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's David Paulman's. He's having issues too.
Okay.
It's all good. Yeah. I'm the only
That's
one with awesome, man. I just wanted to welcome you before we get started talking about this historical Jesus. David, go ahead and respond.
All right. So you asked the question, like, what's the strongest evidence that the historical Jesus is true? By that, do you mean that there was a historical Jesus who actually existed, or that that there was a historical Jesus, but that he's the same as the Jesus that we believe in? I'm not sure which question you were asking there.
I guess the former. Just like a general.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there's the old arguments. We go through like Josephus, Tacitus, right, Pliny the Younger, these various arguments from secular sources, and the reason that those arguments I think are popular is because they, are from secular sources. So they're presumably the atheists or mythicists are not going to be as skeptical of those sources. But I think that the best evidence is just the New Testament itself, that we have the best evidence in the New Testament. You need to give, or at least the mythicist needs to give some kind of explanation for how you have these stories coming up, and at least in some cases, purportedly eyewitness accounts being written about Jesus. If there's absolutely nothing there, then some really strong account has to be provided that's got better evidence. That's simpler than just the hypothesis that Jesus existed. And I know that there's different types of mythicism. Some will grant that there might have been some sort of like quasi Jesus figure or something like that. And so just it's kind of going to depend on what sort of mythicism you hold. But I think that's the strongest point, is you've got to explain the existence of the New Testament. And then to the second question of, what's the strongest evidence on the mythicist side? My problem there is that they don't really give a whole lot. The most of what I see, from like reading like Carrier and Daughtry and Price and people like that is it's mostly all just like taking down positive arguments, right? They'll give arguments against the credibility of Josephus, arguments against Tacitus, arguments, why we can't trust the Gospels and stuff. Or at least I haven't seen a whole lot by way of positive argumentation for thinking that Jesus is not was not a historical figure.
All right. Yeah, Dale, like I would just comment on that. I'll piggyback off of what David was saying there. So me and him are pretty similar to this. Yeah, with Habermas, though, I'll answer that question. Is what I'm going to do is I'm going to try in the interview. I'm looking at it like an arrow. And it's funny because Gary asked me before he came on, he said, hey, can we narrow it down and stuff like that and start categorizing it? And I was already doing that in my head when he sent me that. So it was like, yeah, I'm thinking along those same lines. So I kind of looked at it like an arrow. I'm going to start with the existence of Jesus, and then we're going to work in an arrow to point finally to the resurrection and why they're and the good arguments that exist out there for that. And I think the minimal facts is good. I think Gary's approach is great. I also think the historical reliability of the Gospels are pretty well established. I think that there's better arguments for than against. So yeah, that's where I would leave it, Dale. Yeah, and I'm going to move on to Darth Dawkins because he's been sitting here waiting patiently. So what do you got, bud?
Well, I debate atheists on a regular basis and defend Christianity on Discord, and occasionally I'll be devil's advocate, and I'll converse with naive Christians who think they can debate, evidentially for the Christian worldview, and I'll simply point out, you could successfully persuade somebody that Jesus rose again from the dead. Then they can just sit there and say, well, it doesn't follow from that there's a God. In a large universe, sometimes strange things happen. What are you going to do then?
Yeah, that's a good. I'll hit this one. I'm going to keep apology. So I try to meet
You were
people where they're
breaking
at.
up. Could you repeat your last two sentences, please?
I'm a cumulative case apologist. So I like to try to meet people where they're at.
That doesn't work.
Not always. You're right.
No,
Sometimes you have to take.
It doesn't work at all. Would you
It
like
doesn't work at all. Why not?
No, because you're already catering to the unbelievers' false beliefs. So you've already given them all they need to do to reject what you're saying. It doesn't matter how much probabilistic reasoning you give them. At the end of the day, they could just shrug their shoulders and just say, these are just strange things that just happened in a big universe. What are you going to say then?
All right, David, I'll let you tackle this one a little bit too.
All right, Darth Dawkins is a presuppositionalist.
Yes,
I'm picking up from this. Yes. So here's how I would go about that: is I would argue from inference to the best explanation, right? So you could always
not logically necessitated.
Well, no, it's not logically necessitated. That's the point. It's an inference to the best explanation. No, you haven't. An inference to the best explanation.
That's a judgment call. Okay.
And there are reasons to support it.
If you have a dedicated unbeliever, unbelievers are not unbelievers because they lack evidence. Okay. Let me ask you this question: is everything indicative of the Creator?
No.
Okay. Well, now you're not biblical. Okay. Romans 1. Okay. Ever since
where does Romans 1 say everything? Where does it say everything?
Romans 1. Ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, His eternal powers can be clearly seen through what has been made, through what is.
Where does it say everything?
Okay. It says.
Where does it say everything?
I'm answering.
Does it say everything? Does it say everything that has been made?
You're going to cut me off? Are you going to let me finish?
You've been cutting me off through this whole conversation.
No, I'm pointing out to you that you're making a fundamental mistake. Okay, so do you believe that some things are evidence for God, many things are evidence for God, or all things are evidence for God?
Some things.
Okay, let me tell you why that's philosophically fallacious. Okay, God cannot coexist in a world where some temporal states do not necessitate referencing Him. You understand that?
Could you spell that out more explicitly?
Okay, in a world where God is, okay, and I'm a Bible-believing Christian, but I'm trying to show you how that line of reasoning ultimately fails, okay? In a world where God is as creator, He's the concrete universal. In other words, He institutes all possibility and impossibility, right? He imposes the particulars, He imposes all the categories, and He sustains them. So consequently, that means is that all temporal states that are not God stand in causal relations to God. Do you agree with that?
To what I understood of that, yes.
Okay. So that means then everything is evidence of God.
How does that follow?
Because evidence means that something stands in causal relations to something else. Okay?
I understand evidence to mean that something indicates the truth of something else, or that it makes it probable.
Yeah. Well, let me try from a different angle here. Okay. The rock on the side of the road, can it be a fact without the necessity of referencing God?
I would say yes.
No, it can't. Let me tell you why. Okay. The rock on the side of the road in the Christian worldview is only what it is in its inception and implementation, because it starts in the mind of God and is implemented within the plan of God. So a fact is only what it is within the plan of God. Okay? So the plan of God, which is the result of the mind of God, is the ultimate metaphysical reference in order to make the facts what they are. If you do not take that approach, which is a biblical approach, that things are only what they are within the mind of God, right? Then what you're saying is you can have facts that don't require God as the ultimate reference point. If a fact can exist, any fact at all, without God as its ultimate reference point, then you don't have a fact, right?
Maybe it would be helpful if you tell us what you mean by ultimate reference point.
The ultimate reference point is whatever is going to be fundamental and ultimate, the source of all possibility and impossibility. It will be the ultimate frame of reference, metaphysical background information that makes the particulars what they are. Okay? Now that will be the metaphysical context. So the metaphysical context for all facts in the Christian worldview is the context of eternal God, starting with his mind, then the implementation in his plan. So God himself and his redemptive plan of human history is the final and the ultimate and the beginning frame of reference, or metaphysical contextual reference, in order for facts to be what they are. Now, do you believe that you can have a fact without context?
Depends on what you mean by that. How are you defining context?
Okay, a context would be something is what it is in relation to the whole. So, for example,
In other words, you're asking,
if you go to a YouTube video that shows optical illusions, right, and there are several good ones and entertaining ones, and you form an evaluation as to what the facts are, then the camera moves back and you realize that what you thought were the facts were not in fact the facts, because now you have a fuller contextual background information. So you reformulate what you used to think is the fact, new facts, right? So facts are only what they are in terms of their context. Now, for any given fact, there can be several concentric rings, metaphysically or in a worldview, that makes the facts. But the ultimate contextual situation is going to have to be that it is God, right? Now, if you present facts implicitly or explicitly that do not reference God, then you have no facts at all. They will simply be brute facts. A brute fact is something that is putatively existing, that has no ultimate reference point as to why it exists. In God's world, there cannot be brute facts. Why? It's because all facts are created facts by God. Okay?
How about the fact of God himself? Is he a brute fact, or would you say he's not a fact?
No. God himself, being that he is ultimate and absolute, he is a se. In theology, we say that's the aseity of God. He's complete. He's non-derivative. He needs nothing external, independent of himself to be what he is. So God is not a brute fact. A brute fact has no explanation as to why it exists, either within itself or independently or externally to itself. God himself is a se. That's called the aseity of God. He is self-existent. He is a necessary being. He's self-contained. Okay, so God cannot be a brute fact, right? So when you start capitulating unwittingly, and I used to do this. Now, the fact that I've changed my view doesn't necessarily make me right, but what a lot of unbelievers are doing is they're capitulating to certain false beliefs of unbelievers, that they can have certain facts that exist independently and without reference to God, and then they try to build upon that. So let me explain to you why that's a problem. Okay, suppose we have a syllogism and we say premise 1, premise 2, premise 3, therefore God. Okay? If God is not established in any of the premises, then you cannot conclude God. Because God could not be the conclusion where he is the creator and sustainer of all things, where there is any premise that it can exist without reference or its origin in God. So it's very tempting to try to build a cumulative case. Now, having said that, I'm not against presenting historical evidences as to why people should believe some things, like why should we believe in Jesus? We can explain the historical sequences that occurred about what Jesus said, what he did, his apostles, they were eyewitnesses, they wrote it down, and things like that. That's important. But evidences should not and cannot be presented in such a way that compromise any major scriptural doctrines or that cater to unbelievers' false beliefs that they have about themselves or the world. Okay? So this is the problem with evidentialism. The problem isn't some of the facts that they're explaining as to why we believe. The problem is they combine an appeal to certain historical occurrences, which is fine, but they mix that with catering to one or more of the false beliefs of an unbeliever. So, for example, that the unbeliever possesses autonomous reasoning, that they can reason about this world, about any facts at all, without starting with the acknowledgement of God as creator, or that God is the ultimate contextual reference. Okay? So that's it in a nutshell. I can elaborate further, but it's seriously problematic.
Yeah, I get you, Darth. David, I'll let you respond. Thanks for calling, Darth. We'll have you back on in a little bit, maybe, if we have another question here. I just wanted Dale and David to give a quick response and welcome Clinton Wilcox of the Mentionables, which David keeps forgetting to mute his mic, so I'm echoing all the time. What's up, Clinton? I can hear you barely. If many of you don't know that Clinton was actually with us on the Christmas extravaganza. Dale, while Clinton gets his thing figured out here, I'm going to let you respond to that, what you just heard from Darth Dawkins real quick.
Yeah, so one thing that just interested me, so I agree. God exists a se. He is the ultimate explanation of everything that exists. I did find it interesting that he linked everything to the divine mind. I think there are things are grounded in God, like moral facts are grounded in God's moral nature, not his mind necessarily. So there may be some difference there. Sorry? Okay.
I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
But yeah, the thing that struck me is I think that there's a difference between provability and so it's a fact that everything ultimately is grounded in God in some way for its existence. That's the ultimate explanation, that sort of thing. But in order to prove a certain thing, like from an evidentialist case, starting with proving that Jesus' resurrection, it's not necessary to establish that God is the ultimate grounding of every fact that exists in order to do that. I think we can bypass that and start at a certain point and then establish the case from that. You don't need to set up all the steps in everything in each case. So that's sort of my initial take on what he was saying. But yeah.
All right, David, I'm going to give you a quick response.
Yeah, I was afraid the lecture was never going to end. So I mean, there were a lot of points, there where he was using
he's like you. He's a presuppositionalist, so I thought I'd let you guys talk it out a little bit.
It's unfortunate that, he will throw, like, these statements out there, and I'm kind of, like, wish he would define some of the terms in there. But in any case, I'll go to the one point is that he says that, for example, evidentialism is predicated on the view that human reasoning is autonomous. And of course, it's not fully autonomous, but it is autonomous in the sense that we do not believe that you have to presuppose the existence of God, the truth of Christianity, the truth of the Bible, anything like that. So yes, I would defend the truth that human reasoning is autonomous in that way. And like Greg Bahnsen would argue against that by saying, you got the problem of the criteria, you've got the problem of induction, you've got the problem of deduction. And yes, we have these problems, but we can solve these problems through autonomous human reasoning. So these don't seem like they present much of an argument against it. So his entire speech there was predicated on the assumption that human reasoning is not autonomous. Well, that's where the argument needs to go then, and I'm happy to defend that human reasoning is autonomous. And so if it is, then, the presuppositionalist, his argument is not going to go through.
Right on. Well, again, we have Clinton Wilcox. Clinton, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, you sound way better.
Yeah, because I was originally going through my my laptop mic, but I'm here with my friend Devin Palou, and I went and grabbed his mic because I figured that would sound a lot better.
Nice. So what do you want to talk about, bud?
Well, I'm not sure. I actually don't know what this open mic is all about, so I'm just kind of here checking it out.
Yeah, man.
I felt naked without my hat, so I had to go grab it too.
Yeah. I always have this. This is my signature hat, so it's like, I get you there. I get you. But yeah, so yeah, obviously we just got bombarded with presuppositionalism, which it's cool. We can talk about presup. That's fine. And because David Paulman's a pre-supper, I allow that, so
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, that's what Nick Peters tells me.
yeah.
What on earth is between you and Nick Peters and David Paulman? What happened? I just gotta ask.
Oh, just fun picking is really what they're doing.
A friendly rivalry kind of thing.
If anyone
Gotcha.
found out why Nick Peters has it in for me, like, please let me know, because I don't know what I did.
Yeah, well, it's great when we bring you on, because he stops picking on me when that happens.
That's funny. But yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the resurrection a little bit. We talked about presuppositional epistemology. What tickles your fancy in apologetics, Clinton?
Well, I mean, I kind of found Darth Dawkins to be kind of arrogant and pushy. I would kind of encourage him to, be a lot more, open and receptive to other people who disagree, because you'll be able to be a lot more convincing if you're not just telling people, you're wrong and speaking down at them and saying, let me educate you on why you're wrong and I'm right. So yeah, that was just, just a little, that was something that was just kind of my own pet peeve. A little bit.
Yeah. He did interrupt David quite a few times, and then was upset when David was trying to respond and got on him for interrupting him. So respect's got to go both ways there. And I don't mind hearing the pre-sub's case. I really don't. There's some things I think that they do well, and there's a lot of things I don't think they do well at all. But that's a different position there. David, go ahead.
I think the entire presuppositionalist edifice is, no offense to my presup friends, but I think it is really garbage epistemology. I don't think there's anything of value in any distinctive of presuppositionalism. Now, that's not to say that they don't have anything good in their system. It's just that whatever I find useful in the presuppositionalist system, every other system adopts that as well. So they can't claim to have a monopoly on transcendental arguments, moral arguments,
right,
exposing incoherencies within other worldviews. Everyone does that. So whatever is unique to them, which to me goes back to this rejection of autonomous human reasoning, that's just wrong. Human reasoning is autonomous, and sorry, that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, I mean, God himself says in Isaiah, come, let us reason together. He gave us a rational nature. Surely he intends for us to use it. So I'm a classical apologist myself. And I think presuppositionalism itself is, actually they agree that it's circular. They just have this wacky idea that it's a virtuous circle, where I study logic, and I've never once seen a logic textbook or a book on fallacies ever say that circular reasoning can be virtuous. So like you were saying, even in classical apologetics, the transcendental argument is used in classical apologetics. We agree with them that God is the ultimate standard of morality and beauty and even reason itself, but that doesn't mean that atheists can't also reason. It's like God has even said that he's placed the moral law in our hearts, so obviously we can engage in moral reasoning even apart from God. So
I would agree as well. We've got another guest on, Travis Worth. Travis, say hi, buddy.
Hey, how's my audio?
Yeah, it's good, bud. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just setting up my new laptop and working on my homework, so I saw you guys were on, thought I'd see what's going on here.
Yeah, man, we're just talking about anything and everything. We're just talking about presuppositionalism and how we're all classicalists here. And I'm an accumulative case guy myself, but I do use a lot of the classical methodology in any type of formalized debate. Darth Dawkins is actually challenging you to a debate, David. So if you ever want to do that on a presuppositionalism, we can make that happen. Darth, I am not ignoring you, buddy. I am just giving everybody a chance to speak.
What's up, Darth Dawkins?
Yeah, so what's this is the first I've heard of this open mic. Caleb Johnson actually sent all of the mentionables a message and say, hey, if you're not doing anything, maybe go pop on here. Is it just kind of a general discussion?
Man, just having fun. We're kicking off February, so
okay.
we've got some really good stuff coming up in February. I would say just check it out. We've got Jay Warner Wallace on the 1st. We've got Gary Habermas coming up on the 6th. And
you've got like a God's Not Dead kind of thing going on here.
Yeah, and then I've got Fuzzrana that's coming on later in the month too.
Okay.
And then we've got several discussions that our guests have put together. Travis is one of them, and Dale is going to be on that too. So yeah, it's just going to be a great conversation all the way around. So
yeah,
I had a lot of fun.
I had Fuzzrana on my podcast too last year.
Oh yeah, yeah. Guy. You know, Reasons to Believe, they are, and guys, if you don't know who Reasons to Believe is, get to know them. They are super nice, super friendly, and they're willing to interact with you.
Yes, definitely. They're the ones I actually came to faith through, and I'm actually enrolled in their school working on my certificate of science apologetics through them.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I saw that they had that out there, but I couldn't sign up for that too, and then be doing 3 to 4 classes at a time. So
yeah, see, I got 2 going on in addition to the Reasons to Believe thing. That's why I heard. I don't know exactly what David, you and Darth were talking about, but I strongly disagree. I think apologetics is best through an evidential case. I didn't know exactly where y'all were going with that, but I would strongly disagree with Darth.
Yeah, Darth was trying to educate me on that, you know, we all really know that God exists and that Romans 1 says everything is evidence for God's existence. And apparently somehow that teaches presuppositionalism. But anyway, yeah, that's what it was over.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like with that, wouldn't that just apply to like a philosophical God, like general theism? How would that apply to the Judeo-Christian faith? I've never really understood that.
Oh, it wouldn't.
Oh,
so give him a quick explanation, David. Come on, don't leave him in the wind there.
So, I mean, if you read Van Til, and Van Til is just painful to read, but a big argument he had is that there's this traditional problem in philosophy, the problem of the one and the many, and his argument was that only the Trinity can solve this problem, because we've got, you know, at the very foundation of everything, we've got a God who is both one but also many, and so, you know, that solves. So that's why it has to be the triune God of Scripture. And I mean, of course, that's a garbage argument, because you can parody that and, you know, say, oh well, you know, I'm going to posit a God who's 4 and 1. I can posit a God who's 5 and 1. I mean, you can get this problem of the one and the many solved the exact same way, just through that, assuming you had to go that route at all. And I mean, I think Aristotle solved the problem of the one and the many without ever appealing to the triune God. So, you know, you don't have to go that route to do it, but that's generally how they will try to get to the Christian God, is they'll say he has to be triune in order to solve this problem.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, Clinton, you had a question real quick. What did you want to ask, bud?
Yeah, so actually something just kind of occurred to me when you brought up Reasons to Believe. Hugh Ross is someone that I've been familiar with for a while. I've, for most of my life, been a young Earth creationist, but I fairly recently became an old Earth creationist through listening to some of the lectures by William Lane Craig. I'm not an evolutionist. I'm still very much skeptical about evolution, but I'm more accepting now of old Earth creationism. And yeah, I see David over there celebrating, David Paulman, but I should probably state I'm not 100%. Like, I could not. It's not the case that I couldn't be persuaded to go back to young Earth, but I think because the evidence is so strong for an old Earth, and the chapters of Genesis, you know, Genesis 1 and 2, can be open to a different interpretation. I think that old Earth is kind of the way that I lean. But I'm actually going to be homeschooling my nieces starting this next year. And I'm going to go through an organization called Classical Conversations, because I'm very much also in favor of, you know, the classical style education. I'm a Thomist myself, and I believe that's the best way to educate. But the question I was thinking of is, because I'm planning on also giving them, you know, teaching them, you know, the Bible, apologetics, philosophy, things like that. And so I would just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how do you know, I guess because one of the things that's probably going to be touched on will be creation versus evolution. And so my thoughts are I want to teach both, or maybe even all three if we include intelligent design, but I want to teach them in a way that that anyone who holds to that view could say, yeah, that's what I believe. I don't want to caricature intelligent design or evolution while I'm teaching it, because my thought is, I don't want them growing up thinking that they have to reject evolution or not be a Christian, because if they go to college and start accepting evolution, I'm concerned that they might reject Christianity over that. So the way that I'm leaning is I should teach them intelligent design and evolution, and then let them come to their own conclusions, and let them know no matter what position they ultimately decide on, all three are compatible with Christianity. What do you think about that? Oh, just real quick, I saw a comment from the Magic Man, and yeah, I totally agree, Magic Man. But what I was actually wanting to do is substituting the YEC text and throwing in some texts that are more intelligent design and evolution friendly. So that's why I just kind of wanted to get everyone's thoughts on how they feel that I should proceed with this.
I'm gonna let our professor, our notorious professor here, Dale, answer this real quick. And then we'll follow up and give our examples here. Dale, you got anything on this?
Oh goodness. Okay, so in the first place, yeah, I agree with Clinton. I was really impressed with William Lane Craig's take on Genesis 1 through 11 being of the mytho-history genre. There's a couple reasons, especially that kind of persuaded me to say that that's the most likely genre for it. So, obviously you'd want to teach them about the genre of the text and being aware of the different takes on that. In terms of intelligent design, so yeah, I would say just sort of make them aware of the various positions that are out there. Maybe link them to some sources. There's, I forget what it is off the top of my head, but there is one great source by some Presbyterian organization that lays out all of the positions, young earth creationism, the myth theory, the John Walton's theory, all of the theories, and it gives like the pro and the cons for it. So yeah, like maybe I could send that to David Russell if I remember the link, and he could send that to you to take a look at.
That'd be great. I'd really appreciate that.
Yep, and I'll be sure to keep in touch with that. David Paulman, I'm gonna let you just tackle that real quick too, since you're the single guy.
Have you read Zondervan's 4 views on creation, evolution, and intelligent design?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's a really good resource. It came out, I think, 2017, so it's fairly current. But I enjoy it because you've got each chapter is written by one of the heads of like one of the big origins institutions. So you've got Ken Ham doing young Earth creationism, you've got Hugh Ross doing old Earth creationism, Stephen Meyer doing intelligent design, and Deborah Hartsma doing theistic evolution. And so these are all well-known representatives of their view. And I just say that I think it's a good idea that you are really presenting the full range here, because the way it was taught to me, I was homeschooled, and like I was taught it's young Earth creationism or it's atheism, and atheism and evolution, and like I just for so long thought that was that's it. And so it's helpful to know that there's a distinction between the issue of evolution and the age of the Earth, right? You can come over to the old Earth side without capitulating to evolution. You can go the whole 9 yards and become an evolutionist. What's that?
I said, yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm old Earth creation, but I don't accept evolution.
So right, yeah, I'm right there with you, but.
Go ahead, Travis.
Oh yeah, sorry, there's a bit of a delay on my audio. Yeah, I was going to say I'm going through the class I'm actually doing right now is like the different interpretations. It's science in the Bible, and it's really cool because it's laying out the different views. I'm kind of partial to the analogical day view, which is like it could be like an age of time, but it's used in the 24-hour sense for like a 6-to-1 pattern. And then there's, but it's really cool because it's going over the different views, like the calendar day view, the day age view, the framework view, temple inauguration. And one thing that's really cool too, and that almost all scholars will agree upon, is like it's in its immediate context, it's sort of a polemic. And then it becomes like, how do we look at it now? And I found either the day age or the analogical day view is the most accurate in my opinion, scientifically and biblically.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give you the fatherly advice. You have kids, Clinton?
No, I don't have any kids of my own, and that's primarily why I'm going to be homeschooling my nieces is because my well, first of all, I wanted to homeschool them because public school now is just becoming kind of a trash heap, and they're going through some like emotional problems, right. And so for their own emotional, spiritual, and intellectual development, I want to school them myself because I can't trust the public school to do it, and I don't have any kids of my own, so I figure that gives me the time to homeschool my nieces instead.
Yeah. Okay. So the fatherly advice that I would give is, I have 4 kids and I have 2 teenagers and 2 young ones. So I've got an infant, a 5-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 15-year-old. I've always come at the approach of inoculating versus isolating. So my kids go to public school, and it's a dung heap, and you've got to keep up with it. You've got to keep up with what they're learning. And when you're homeschooling, I would say, yes, you definitely have to inoculate them to the other views. To me, that's tantamount. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're hiding something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to. School should be a place where thought is promoted. It should be a place where, that you teach different varying views. And you give good reasons for your own views, So inoculate them, tell them how to think, or not tell them how to think, but give them the views to make them think,
right?
And then go from there, man. Yeah, that's pretty much my advice there.
Okay,
but anybody got anything to add before we move on? I think David Paulman's phone died, so. Oh. Which I gotta say, thank God, because his echo was killing me whenever he would leave his mic on.
I was just gonna say, Clinton, I posted the link to the article I was referring to. I think it's the same one that Travis was mentioning as well. But I don't know if that's appropriate for kids. I didn't realize you were talking about kids. So
I think it is. Is it the Reasons to Believe course from Reasons Institute? Is that it?
No, it's a PCA report.
Okay.
Yeah, report of the Creation Study Committee of the PCA.
Oh, I just tried to load it up here, and it said it can't be accessed.
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
Well, maybe we can find it another way and then send it to you later.
Oh, you know what? Actually, hold on. I think I may have goofed up on copy and pasting it.
It helps to get that right, yeah.
Yeah, let's try again.
Yeah, what's really cool too is I have that book David was talking about, it, and it's really interesting because it lays out like the 4 views of like old Earth creation, theistic evolution, young Earth, and intelligent design, and they present their models and they all interact with each other. So it's really cool. You can kind of see the head people interacting with like critiques and everything.
Yeah. The 4 views, that if you get any chance, always look at the 4 views. This is like isn't a new movement, but they have a lot of books. They have 4 views on apologetics, providence, foreknowledge. I'm going through the foreknowledge one right now myself, which is pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
So they got William Lane Craig in there. They've got Hunt in there. Who else? Greg Boyd for open theism. It's just a lot of different. There are 4 different views on it, and they do it with a whole bunch of different views. Do they have one on hell yet? I don't know about that.
They do, yeah. Counterpoints, yeah. But I was just going to say the one that you're mentioning with William Lane Craig and Greg Boyd, and that's the one I used when I was discussing with Chris Date on Calvinism versus Molinism. So that one's a good one.
So where do you fall on that one, Dale? I haven't. Oh, Molinism there.
Oh, well, have you not heard of my famous Molinistic defeater?
So that's where that comes from.
It's me.
So me and Dale come from another podcast as well called Skeptics and Seekers. Actually, Caleb was on that with us a couple weeks back.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was pretty good. You should check it out.
Yeah, actually, I've got a discussion coming up with Chris Date on the nature of hell in a couple of
Oh
minutes.
my, your traditional view?
Yeah, traditional view. Eternal conscious torment.
All right.
And
well,
so far, probably
be ready, my friend. He comes with a hammer.
Yeah, probably 95% of the people I've told so far have told me I'm going to lose. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence being built up right now.
Oh, well, you've got time to actually really, really dig into the books and literature on it. He does come with, he's soft spoken, but he comes in with a mighty hammer. Ask Dale. I mean, me and him both were just like listening, I think, more than we were combating him, weren't we, Dale?
Yeah. We did the show on hell. If you want to get a link to a Skeptics and Seekers show that me and David Russell did with him. But yeah, still, it's not a competition. It's about getting to the truth. So yeah, just do your best. He knows his material and that sort of thing. But
yeah, that's why I told him I want a discussion, not a debate, because I know he has a lot of experience debating and I don't. So I want to make sure it's just going to be a friendly discussion where no one feels any pressure, but we just try to come to the truth of the matter together.
There you go.
So.
Yeah, it's good. All right. Out of curiosity, Clinton, are you? You said you're eternal conscious torment.
Yeah.
Good man. But would you take what some like Gary Habermas or J.P. Moreland would call the torture chamber model, or more of a quarantine model?
I'm not 100% decided on that because, I know that there are alternate ways to interpret some of the passages. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on that. I do believe it's eternal separation from God. So it's at least eternal quarantine. But I do think that there is a sense of punishment in there, as to whether it's a full-blown torture chamber. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Gotcha.
You know what's interesting is I've read Hugh Ross. He has a book on that, and he actually holds to that. And the way he would defend it, now I disagree, but he would defend it as saying that the torment can be like a form of restraint to kind of restrain the widespread of the evil. So that that might be some kind of way to support like an eternal. Yeah, I've actually changed my mind several times. Like I used to hold to kind of like the C.S. Lewis version that that it's like a prison locked from the inside, but I've kind of switched. Yeah, the quarantine. But I've kind of switched to like a conditional immortality and maybe limited or weak universalism.
A weak universalism. Wow.
Well, for like people who haven't heard the gospel or like haven't had a chance to, maybe,
So okay, yeah, I wouldn't really call that. Well, maybe Dale. What do you think? I don't know if I'd call that weak universalism for people that haven't heard the gospel type deal.
Yeah, that's more like inclusivism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's my perspective. Believe it or not, I'm actually reading about that in my philosophy of religion class at this moment. So, yeah, good topic. But
I
think it answers the divine hiddenness well.
Yeah, I hold to also to the ECT view too, and I just haven't been able to wrap my mind around annihilationism still yet. I just like Calvinism, I can't wrap my mind around that either. But
yeah, do you take the quarantine or the torture chamber view?
Quarantine.
Okay.
More or less. The best book on hell, guys, is The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. So then, how do you handle verses then that seem to imply that there will be like a fire that never, like a worm that never dies, the fire that never goes out, things like that?
I think.
Yeah, the smoke of their torment.
Yeah, I think we're looking at metaphoric language that is describing a state that's going to last forever. I think that absence of God is that flame, in a way. Yeah. So I would look at it like that.
There's actually another view that says like the fire or the torment or whatever is actually God's presence and His holiness just consumes the unrighteous.
Yeah, but it would still imply that they were tortured forever at that point, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I think so. The fire is principally like that kind of imagery is symbolic of God's wrath. It's standing for wrath and justice and that sort of thing. It's not a literal fire that's going to be burning us alive and that sort of thing. I was actually just, when you asked me to speak here, I was looking for the article from Christian think tank that really lays out those 4 views and kind of explains the pros and cons and that sort of thing. But it explains. I mean, they're opposing metaphors. So J.P. Moreland would argue this way, right? So you have these metaphors of the fire, but then hell is also darkness. Well, if you take it literally, those are contradictory, right? Fire produces light and that sort of thing. So that's one reason that you've heard that before, I take it, Clinton, or?
Well, I have, but I've never really found that very convincing because, like if you're outside camping and it's dark, you can still light a fire even though it's darkness all around you. So yeah, there'll be light produced by the fire, but it could still be a place of outer darkness even with the fire burning. So I've never really found that argument to be very convincing.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I guess it's you have to kind of see like how the imagery is being used, and does it make sense to try and harmonize them in that way? And yeah, just in my books, it doesn't. I think they're describing, but yeah, I'm trying to find the article, but I'll find it for you and post it up in the chat for everyone.
Okay. All right, guys, welcome Tim from Invoking Theism and Caleb Johnson from the Mentionables.
Hey, Caleb.
Howdy.
What's up, Tim?
Hey.
What's going on, guys? What do you got? What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, can we talk about how we have a little bit of a Muppet Show vibe going on here?
So, Tim, how are you, man?
Oh man, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Right on. Caleb, what's up, buddy?
Oh, not much. Trying to keep my kids alive, make sure they don't kill themselves, and
that's a good thing, man.
Yeah, they're trying to learn to skateboard, so it's not easy.
Guys, I tell you, there's one time I went skateboarding and I did one of those like the skateboard slides out from under you and you're like completely in the air, and I landed on my butt bone and it hurt for like a month. And I think my back's never been the same since. It's crazy, man. You can do a lot of stupid things when you're young, man. And then next thing you know, you're like my age now, like I'm 39, and you're like, why did I do all that?
Yeah, I'm paying for it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyways, Tim, what did you want to talk about real quick?
Oh, I kind of just came in to kind of just hang out.
That's fine, man. Yeah.
I don't know what you guys were.
We're talking about hell.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a burning topic for tonight.
Yeah, no, burning. Oh, nice.
Thanks.
No, I mean that's actually pretty relevant to me right now because kind of my side pet project along my larger projects right now in terms of my research is basically researching the doctrine of hell, and I'm very much attracted to a universal reconciliation view. Very much attracted to that. Started going that way philosophically, and now I'm going down the route exegetically. And from before, I really thought that it was a you hear universalism, right? And there's a difference between Christian universalism and Christian universal reconciliation. For those that might not know, there still is a hell. People still are punished for their sins and things of that sort. But there's a lot of talk in Scripture about God and Christ reconciling everything to Himself. And I don't think it's a far off view at all. I don't think it's incoherent at all. I just want to take my time and research the views. I am not convinced by eternal conscious torment. I think the advocates of annihilationism have done well at exegeting the passages that talk about forever and what seem like eternity. So now it's just kind of seeing, kind of going, okay, well, which view will give God the highest view of love at the same time being philosophically and theologically in accordance with what is spelled out in the text that we see. So that's where I'm at right now with that. And so I'm very much attracted to it, but I'm not going to say I'm 100% in that camp, because I need to do my research. I need to spend a lot more time on looking at this, but that's where I'm at in terms of hell.
Yeah.
Tim, Tim, real quick for the audience, can you explain the difference between, just in a nutshell, you don't have to be long, you don't have to give a presentation, but the whole idea for the audience, universal reconciliation versus universalism?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, in a nutshell, just put it very simply and crudely.
Can you?
Yeah, universal reconciliation basically says that that in the end, God will be able to, and God will reconcile everything, all souls back to Himself, all persons, all things back to Himself, and that includes those that are referred to as like the damned and those that are perishing and things. And basically, the view is that when God's more in the restoration business, the restoring business, rather than like a complete reset or completely doing something new. That's what seems to be spelled out in Scripture. And so so the idea is that eventually those who have rejected Christ, or those who never accepted Christ, will eventually be able to be reconciled back to Christ when everything is basically, to put it simply, basically everything is said and done. And another part of that view is that so those in hell, those people are basically paying respectively, are paying for their respective sins. They are suffering for their respective sins. So it's not like, oh, Hitler just goes to heaven, right? There'll be not a single person in heaven who's not sanctified. Everyone in heaven will be
Tim, I
sanctified.
got a question.
Sure.
I got a question with that view. How does the restoration view look at like the angelic realm, like say fallen angels, demons, things of that sort?
Yeah, I was listening to an unbelievable debate. It was from two evangelical universalists, and they were talking to a eternal conscious torment guy, and
right.
he asked this question, and I totally forget the answer he brought forth, but I remember it being like an angle I've never heard before. So I don't want to like I don't want to like butcher what he said. So I kind of forget what he said, but as of right now, I don't really know exactly like what the like in terms of representing the view, like what exactly they would say and things. But what I do know, I'll start with what I do know. What I do know is that you see the language of every knee will bow, and things, and either you can interpret that as they'll forcibly bow, like like a cop detaining somebody, somebody exercising their authority or that person, or you can see that as no, like God will have conquered sin and death, and He will have reconciled everything to Himself, and every knee will bow. And that's more how the universal reconciliation is like looks at those things. And so it's like, okay, like that's kind of I see it. So if that includes Satan, like okay, that is consistent. That seems very consistent with God being all powerful, and that seems consistent with Him being all merciful. And this doesn't undermine God's justice, because they will pay for what they have done. That's the kind of the thing that it doesn't deny, is that these individuals will pay for the sins that they've committed. That's like I was saying earlier, like however Hitler will have to do that, in his separation from Christ, he will have to do that. But eventually, God will be able to reconcile him through a changed heart. His love will be able to overpower. Kind of the same way, like if you think about it, like people ask, will we have free will in heaven? It's like, well, if we won't be able to sin in heaven, does that mean we have free will? Well, it's like, no, we will still have free will, but God's love and His being will be so interconnected and so interpenetrate us that is no longer a feasible action. that we can't, we won't, that's just not even something we'll even be able to conceive of sinning, because we'll be in that kind of capacity. It'll be so cataclysmic in our relationship with God. And so I feel it seems coherent enough that when you look at the souls that are that will have to pay for they'll be punished for their sins, that
right.
They'll be able to be reconciled through God's love still being given to them. But since God is just, they're going to have to go through that. So it's going to like the Hitler example, it's like, yeah, Hitler, however long that takes, unspecified amount of time, eventually, he will bow his knee towards Christ.
So Tim, here's a question I think is actually coming towards you. It says, are there actually, this is from Logical, Plausible, Probable, are there actually people who claim that Lucifer will be reconciled? Doesn't that directly contradict Revelation?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna say I'm not sure. I was more just kind of entertaining, like, if you were to take that view, what that would look like.
Yeah, and also
I'm not committed either way.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like I am trying to look at the view as charitably as possible.
Yeah,
and theologically and philosophically.
And too logical, just to let you know that we discuss many different views here, so you're gonna get a bunch from everybody here. I think the three up here are definite ECT guys, and the bottom two on your right have got the different.
Did you do that on purpose?
But Caleb, what's up, man? What do you got?
Yeah, so I've got a really, really narrow view of hell. For me, it's probably somewhere between eternal conscious torment and universal reconciliation. So that's about as narrow as I get with my view.
Yeah, if I could, real quick, I wanted to comment on something that Tim was just saying regarding, like, we want to find the view that makes God the most loving, essentially. Because as a human being myself, who could be going to hell if I weren't given God's gift of salvation, I have empathy myself, especially for people who are going to hell, and so I would particularly hope that universalism or even maybe annihilation would be true, but we need to stick with what Scripture actually teaches and not go by what we wish is true. And I'm not saying Tim is doing that, and I'm not saying Chris State's going to do that or anything like that. But this is something that some of the annihilationists I know try to do, is try to shame people who hold to an eternal conscious torment view, as if their view is unloving or unscriptural, things like that. And so we have to be careful that we're not taking our own anxieties and fears about hell and trying to make God unloving if eternal conscious torment were true because of those anxieties. I tend to think of like a parent who tries to make the kid eat her vegetables, or not do something that the kid really wants to do, and the kid still developing and learning the way the world works might actually blurt out that she hates her parents, when all the parents are really trying to do is teach her the correct way to live and do what's best for her. And so, I think we need to be careful not to read our own anxieties and fears about hell into our view of eternal conscious torment or annihilation, and say, because, for example, God, torturing someone for eternity would make God unloving or something like that. Because I just don't think it's necessarily, I don't think the scriptural teaching is necessarily as clear as it should be to start making pronouncements like that.
Yeah,
I think those are really good.
Okay.
Those are really good. Like principles to start by. Like, yeah, I would agree with you. Like, on those things. Like, hey, we should keep those things in mind. We should be careful. I think that's really good, and that's honestly what I'm keeping in mind when approaching this. But at the same time, it's like, what's most, I take the approach of, we should always try to interpret the unclear with the clear. And what's clear to me is that God is love. He is perfection. He is absolute perfection. And in the end, if I can't even figure it out, I have enough evidence to trust in that whatever the end is for, people who have rejected Christ, God's decision with what to do with them will in the end be loving. So I always just stand by that in the sense of, okay, what does that look like? But I also think that, we also, being embodied moral agents, God created us that way specifically, that we have some direct window into what is moral, what is not moral, what is loving, what is not loving. And, I've had people say to me, oh, well, you're only considering this because of emotions. And it's like, well, emotions can be a window into something that's true, and it can be a window into something that's false. What if my emotions are a window into something that's true? My emotions, if they're irrational, as Aristotle wants us to be, he wants our emotions to, if we're acting upon our emotions, they should be rationally placed. When God in the scriptures is angry, he's angry. That's an emotion, but he's angry righteously, rationally. So that is something that, that is something that we shouldn't just discount. These are there for a reason. Emotions are informative things. They're informing something about ourselves, either that. And so, but that gets into a lot of other things. So that's how I look at it. And it's like,
Yeah.
so that's how I look at this issue that way. Oh, I
Yeah,
saw, sorry, real quick. I saw that same logical, plausible, possible, whatever. He said that I shouldn't be airing opinions unless I've studied eschatology. It seems like he wants me to whatever eschatology he holds to, he wants me to hold that position. Yeah, it's like, man, why can't I just say I'm researching, bro?
Yeah, you did say that. He might have missed it. So we got to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, right? So, Travis, you were about to say something, and then I'm going to give it to Dale real quick, and because I know he had a follow up. So, go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, to kind of touch on what everybody was saying, I take more of a conditional immortality approach, but I think it's something that I try and keep an open mind with, and what I'm really starting to look into is the intertestamental period, and like the from there, and I think that might could give us a little more insight into this, looking at the intertestamental period and what their view of it was. That's all I have.
All right. You got an answer, Tim. Dale, go ahead, man. Follow up.
Yeah, I had just sort of a question for the panel, but I know that I don't know, has Caleb asked his question? Like, I don't want to be selfish if he's got a question.
Go ahead, Caleb.
I'm just along for the ride. I did have a brief follow up or just on Clinton's point, and I appreciate your response, Tim. I appreciate Clinton's passion for avoiding emotions on it too, because I see this with Jehovah's Witnesses all the time. One of their primary tactics for trying to pull people in is to say, well, all the other churches in Christendom believe in eternal conscious torment in the Trinity, and both of these things are wrong. So, and they really play on that eternal conscious torment and play it up like everyone in Christendom believes it except them. So, I see how the emotional pull can be dangerous, but Tim's on point too, that, emotions can be valuable as well. So just wanted to throw that in there, but no, I don't have any other topic I'm bringing to the table. I'm just along for the ride.
Right on. There's one thing, Dale, before I hand it over to you, because you have a question for the panel. I would just follow up is one of my biggest issues with the whole annihilationist view. They put a lot of issues on, or a lot of, I don't know, a lot of, I don't even know how to say it right now, but they harp on the eternal conscious torment view about, it violating the nature of God. I hear that a lot, God is love and this and that. But for me, I think that annihilationists, they don't regard sin the way we probably have in the past, and how detrimental it is and how corruptive it is. So I think there could be a issue there as well. And that's just what I would follow up with, is that, God is holy too. And we don't know how much sin impacts us. I mean, yeah, we have a little bit of an idea, but I think it goes a lot deeper than that too. I think it goes a lot deeper than that surface level that we have an understanding about. But anyways, Dale, if you want to go to a question, if you guys or anybody want to follow up on that or go to another question, that's fine. I'll just give it to Dale.
I wanted to ask something in terms of, I often hear the argument that infinite sin, sin against an infinite God requires an infinite punishment. And I think that that's just a non sequitur. But I want to get what you guys hear what you guys think, because I grew up hearing that, like that was like a philosophical defense of eternal conscious torment. But I think it has a lot of holes in it, so I want to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I would just come back with that with saying I don't think that's enough. I don't think that statement gives you enough. If you want to give somebody an answer that's really searching like yourself, I would probably try to formulate a answer. I wouldn't just give you, well, infinite God, and and infinite sin. I've heard that all too, man. I don't think it's a good answer to give to somebody that's actually searching for the answer. I think getting into a discussion on the theology and sin could be a starting point, and it could go from there. But,
well, that brings up an interesting point, though, because we talk about like the passing of time, like whether it's like eternal or we're eventually restored. But isn't that kind of like what's the nature of time in the new creation? Because what if like time passes differently, where it's not like you've been there 5 minutes or 5 billion years, you're simply there. I mean, that might be something to look into too. Like, what's the nature of time in the new creation?
That's a good point. I think the finite sin against an infinite God argument, I think that goes back to Jonathan Edwards. But that, I mean, I can kind of see where he's coming from on that, but also I kind of suspect it equivocates on the term, finite and infinite, because the sins that we commit here are only temporal, and God is infinite. But committing a temporal sin against an infinite God, I think that kind of trades on different definitions of those words. I'm actually more partial to what William Lane Craig says. He says that the reason punishment in hell goes on forever is because when you die, you don't stop sinning, but you continue sinning forever. And so all the sins that you commit in hell will also need to be paid for by your time in hell. And it just kind of stretches on forever. And by contrast, those of us who accept Christ's salvation here on earth, we are preparing ourselves for heaven and for when we will eventually be with God forever with a free will, but also having used the time on earth to prepare ourselves to abstain from sins. And so that's kind of I think that's kind of my preferred way of looking at things.
All right.
Sort of like a soul building theodicy.
I suppose so. I've never heard it referred to like that, but
yeah. So Caleb, you got anything else on that one? All right, Dale.
So I agree with Clinton's. That was going to be sort of my answer as well. About we keep sinning over eternity in hell, and this accrues more punishment and that sort of thing. That's sort of the option that I think is the most plausible. I think Travis was mentioning about the nature of time, so that's interesting. So I take an A theory of time. I don't think time, once time is established, it's going to be the same in both here and in the afterlife, in the final state. But yeah, my sort of question was sort of following up. So Caleb and Tim sort of mentioned the role of emotions. There might be some more value to them in terms of moral questions. So I just wanted to kind of ask people, like, do we think that emotions are any sort of source of warrant for making moral claims in any way, or are they just totally garbage? And like I sort of came up with my own theory recently, so I don't know if David, do you want me to give my
give it out, man.
Okay,
give it out.
So let me hear what you guys think. Maybe I'm crazy or something, but
yeah.
So I think that emotions are obviously linked to moral truths, and this has been proven empirically. They kind of serve as moral heuristics, availability heuristics specifically. So this is what I think, that based on my moral ontology, I think that there are higher moral principles or values, things like the principle of justice or principle of truth and that sort of thing. When you violate a moral principle, that's what we call immorality. But there's another type of situation where two or more moral principles will conflict with each other, and we have to make a decision on what's best to do. So
you wouldn't be an absolutist?
I wouldn't be an unqualified absolutist, I would say. But I think that there are exemptions to the moral principles, put it that way. So that's what I think the emotions might be tracking, is it's tracking that, the moral ideal has not been upheld or not. It's not necessarily tracking whether a violation of a moral principle has taken place or not. We can't use them to say, if Abraham willing to sacrifice his son, I feel that's repugnant, so that's immoral or something like that. At most, we can just say that the moral ideal is not being upheld based on a negative emotion. So yeah, that's sort of a theory in a nutshell. I don't know if that makes sense, but what do you guys think, and what's your opinion?
All right, I'll give it to whoever wants to tackle it first.
Are you talking about the way our emotions like with regard to the nature of God, or I don't know if I was following.
So your emotions when you're confronted with a moral situation or something, right? So for skeptics will bring up God commanded people to kill the Canaanites or something like that, or the hell example, for example. You're going to torture me forever in hell. I feel bad emotions towards that. That's repugnant. Or
okay.
Yeah.
Does
that, go ahead.
I think it does. I mean, it kind of opens the door for like a skeptical theism too. Like, we don't have a vantage point from eternity, but I do think it plays like some, it at least plays a role in how we kind of deal with these kind of topics.
Yeah. Tim, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's not much I can really find to really disagree with, but how I come at this is, we have a multiplicity of senses, and we have the main senses that we that we are taught that we have, and then I think we have more. I agree with Josh Rasmussen that we have more. I think one of those senses is our moral sense, and it would make no sense to say that one sense, either all of our senses are a direct window into reality or none of them are, because it would make no sense that one of my senses actually tells me something correct and my other sense does not. When there is no relevant difference between them being senses. So that's the first part. So I think that, by way of uniformity, that our senses are really telling us something. They're telling us something about reality. And I mean, A.J. Ayer, being in the height of logical positivism, viewed moral statements as just preference, as just preference descriptions and things, and basically uttering our negative attitude towards something. Like, we don't like racism. That doesn't mean that racism is wrong. It just means that we don't like it. And we're pretty much just raising our fist in the air saying boo racism, but that doesn't actually mean anything. So that's like the other extreme you have there. But if they do tell us that if we do have a window into reality, we have that moral sense, then when you do see acts of racism happening, and you do have those negative emotions accompanied by it, and you understand, that is telling you something. And we also have to keep in mind that morality is a rational enterprise, and that our reason follows it, and reason allows us to see allows us to uncover, more about what's right and more about what's wrong. And so that's why I said in the beginning, like, rationality in conjunction with our emotions is how we should be approaching things. Am I having a rational emotion right now or not? I feel like most people, when they doubt certain things, like in faith and whatnot, it comes directly from nothing intellectual, but mainly something about their emotional attitude or something like that. And human psychology is very, very, very complex. But so I would say that if we're looking at hell and things, and it's like, right now I am thinking about a certain conception of hell. I understand what it I'm seeing this thing about God being loving and things of that sort, and I've experienced God's love and things of that sort, but this doesn't seem to be adding up, and things. That's like, I cannot imagine, like, for example, babies go to hell, a miscarriage happens. Oh, that sucks. They go to hell, because they have, sin and things, or they're guilty for just being conceived and whatnot. It's like, if that makes you, question, okay, my theological views cannot allow, I have to change my theological views somewhere like that, then there is some credence to that. But if you're to say, if you are to give credence to something like that, but not give credence to something like, well, just because you don't like the idea of an eternal hell, that doesn't mean that, that you should change your theological views about it. I would like to know exactly what the relevant difference is between those two. And it's going to lie somewhere within our rationality. So that's just going to bolster the point I said earlier, like, and this is what Aristotle taught, being one of putting together his great treatise on like on like virtue ethics and things. Exploring these topics, that's completely consistent with those things. So that's how I look at it. Kind of a winded answer there.
Yeah, that was really well said. Yeah.
Caleb, what you got, bud?
I just wanted to join in. So
there's two Calebs. I'm going to say Jackson and Johnson.
Very similar last name.
How you doing, Caleb? We have our another guest with us now. Is Caleb Jackson. He's been on the show. He's no stranger. So yeah, man. Yeah. How you doing, buddy?
Good. For some reason, I'm hearing an echo. Everything you're all saying keeps repeating back to me. So I don't know if my audio is messed up or not. Are you running the StreamYard along with YouTube in the same browser? That could be your problem.
Yeah, that happened to me when I first signed on.
Yeah.
Okay, it's better now.
Okay, cool. So Caleb Johnson, from the question Dale asked, what do you got for it?
It actually raised an interesting thought for me in regards to we have to be careful with how we use terms in this area, because senses both play into emotion, and emotion plays into how you interpret what you receive from your senses. And particularly when this comes to morals, and I was thinking in relation to sin in particular, there are people who become numb to sin in a way. You have, serial killers, and I think you mentioned the Night Stalker early on the episode tonight. And so you have those kind of situations. So my thought processes have just dragged me down that road of thinking of how we dull emotions through sin and essentially can taint our moral compass in a way that dulls it or suppresses it, and thus it reflects differently on how we react and how those emotions come out. So my mind's running circles over in that area.
Yeah. Dale, I don't think you're crazy here, man. I think you got it. I'd have to confirm what like Tim said, and yeah, man, I can't find any fault in your logic here at all.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So I'm not totally crazy then. So that's good. I like what Caleb was saying too. Like that sort of deals with obviously appeal to emotion. It's a logical fallacy. How on God's green earth can you be warranted in using them and that sort of thing. But there are reasons for that, right? There are distorting effects. Our moods can affect our emotions and our character traits. So that relates to the sinful things. So you've got to be very careful.
Yeah. And you have to have good justification,
Yeah.
I think that's important. So, Caleb, do you want to talk about anything?
You're talking about me or Johnson?
Jackson.
I don't think I heard the question because that was when it was echoing. So.
Well, you would be the one starting the next question.
Oh,
and you're going to be the last question because we're on 2 hours and 10 minutes. So.
Oh, to be honest, I didn't have anything to complain. I just kind of showed up. I just got done talking to Tim Bataski and Kyle Vollmer about stuff. So
cool.
I forgot about joining in here, but whatever y'all were talking about is, I don't know what the context was, but I'm sure it sounded like it was something with hell or sin or something. But
we did. We talked about hell a little bit. We talked about we even got bombarded by some presuppositionalism, which was fun. But Paulman was here for that, so I let him talk to his family member there. So because he is a presuppositionalist. So.
I'll watch it later on then. Yeah, I didn't really have any questions for discussion. It's nice to see Dale again. I don't know. I haven't seen Dale since we interviewed Lacona. So it's funny because Dale actually got me in contact with the guy who's trying to prove something I'm trying to get published in the Tyndale Bulletin right now on Resurrection. So
Tony Costa,
yeah, he's been helpful. So
awesome. Has he reached out to you? Because I know I gave you guys the
yes.
Oh, that's great.
He's looked over, and I'm just waiting for him to write the thing on it, so the approval letter. He said he would approve it. He just has to write the thing. But yeah, no, it's generally good contact. So I didn't really have that much questions other than just I can say I just published my book on theodicy, and I'm working on other projects right now. But that's not really a question. Oh yeah, no problem. But balancing that with school and writing other projects. I'm doing a book on religious experience, but I'm also as a sidetrack was working on a. I think I'd mentioned this to Dale a little bit during on our interview of the visions and dreams of Jesus across multiple cultures that I thought was really interesting. I did a little bit of research into that, and there were a lot of really compelling cases. So I'm trying to make that its own argument in favor of the resurrection. So that's been an essay I've been working on as well. So
cool. Yeah, that's interesting stuff, man.
Thanks. I like your watch.
Thank you, sir. This is Walmart top of the line, baby.
Yeah, Walmart has stuff that looks nice. That's not expensive.
Yeah, but hey, man, these things last a long time, though. I gotta give it to them. But anyways, yeah, guys. Well, this has been fun. This has been real good. I'm glad everybody came on. Everybody decided to contribute a little bit. This was awesome. This is like I said, this is a kickoff to the February month. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. I even had to get myself a calendar that's right next to the desk here to cipher through it all. I want to thank Caleb Jackson too for helping me set up I think 2 of the guest host debates.
Oh yeah.
And he's working on a third. Were you working on a third one?
I think I only set up one and I'm in the other one.
Oh yeah, you're in the other one.
I'm in one of them and I'm hosting one of them. I don't remember.
Yeah, you did bring somebody to it, right?
I brought Swan.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, guys. Like I said, look forward to a great month ahead. We have epic interviews, and we have great guest host debates. So if you like this type of podcast where I could just get anybody and everybody to have an open mic and just talk about anything, let me know in the comments, and I will arrange another one. Other than that, this is David Russell with Proselytize or Apostatize. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot, David.
Yep. Thanks.